Well, we kick off this morning going across to India and to be joined by Aasif Mujtaba, who is a journalist and a research scholar. We're talking Article 370, what happened in Kashmir on the 5th of August 2019. Aasif Mujtaba, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome.
Walaikum assalam.
Yes, wonderful you're able to join us now. 3 years without Article 370, and we know what had happened on the 5th of August 2019. The BJP government, the Modi government drew curtains on the constitutional provisions that accorded Jammu and Kashmir special status. Now, let us just go back 3 years ago. What happened?
See, when we talk about the abrogation of 370, the most important part is as to why it was inserted in the Indian Constitution. People say it granted special status to people of Jammu and Kashmir. Actually, we have been numerous provisions in our Constitution that grants a special status to a lot of the northeastern states. So we have an article in the Constitution that grants a special status to the states of Manipur, to the states of Tripura, and the other northeastern states. By special status, I mean when Jammu and Kashmir was finally put into the Republic of India, we gave them another article called 35A. Right. Through this article, we said that you decide, like the Legislative Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir decide as to who will be the residents of the state. And once you decide the residents of the state, you also decide that these residents will have the power to buy land. These residents will have the power to enjoy a scholarship of the union. And the other people who are not defined as a residents through these provision will not have the right either to buy property, either to buy immovable property, or to enjoy the benefits or the schemes of the government, right? So there was one provision in the constitution itself as to how the 370 can be abrogated. But on 5th of August 2019, when the government of India, a resolution was, an act was inserted to discuss in the Rajya Sabha, it was unconstitutional move. The way it was abrogated was not at all the way it was mentioned in the constitution. So one thing is very clear, that the way through which Article 370 was abrogated was unconstitutional. The way it was abrogated is illegal in the eyes of the law. But shamefully, even after 3 years of completion, the Supreme Court of India, the apex court of judiciary in the country, is yet to form a bench. So one natural question arises as to if there are special provisions related to other states, why these special provisions still exist, and why a special provision related to Kashmir has been abrogated in a unilateral way. The only reason was Jammu and Kashmir was the only state in the Republic of India that was a Muslim majority in which Muslims were occupying the positions of the head of the executive, right? The Indian state never liked it. So one thing is very clear, that this abrogation is totally Islamophobic. This abrogation is totally criminal. This abrogation of Article 370 is totally unconstitutional. This abrogation is totally illegal. When the when the article was abrogated, the government of India said we really want to have an economic prosperity for Kashmir. But just in 4 months of the abrogation, the loss that was incurred to the people of Kashmir was to the tune of 1700 crores. 3 years down the line, we don't have a good data as to what is the exact economic loss that the people of Kashmir has endured, because this government is very good in hiding the data. So we don't have data related to the total economic loss. We even don't have data related to the total unemployment in the country. We don't have a data related to the total people who got killed in the COVID. So one thing is that the government is very good at is hiding the data, right? So basic question remains the same. If there are no fruits of economic prosperity that is being seen in the Kashmir, so as to why Kashmir was abrogated, 370 was abrogated, right? If you look at the journey that any liberal democracy in the world goes through. So with progression, with coming years, every democracy wants to involve more of its people, right? So there are this year we are celebrating the 75th year of our independence. During this 75 years of a journey as an Indian Republic, we see there has been instances. When we started our journey in 1947, we just had a two-tier of government. Later in 1990s, the government entered into the third tier as well, just as to empower the lowest level of our in participation of people. So initially we had two tier of the
Yes, I think we're having a slight problem, and I'm sure. There we go.
yeah. I hope I'm back.
Yes.
So so initially the union territory did not have much power, did not have much voices in the legislature. So with coming years we gave more powers to them. With coming year we had elections in the union territory, that is Delhi, that is the capital itself. So there is one path that every republic, every democracy follows, is more participation of people in the affairs of the state. Kashmir would only be one such example where we had a regressive step rather than taking the progressive step forward. So rather than involving people more into the affairs of the state, rather than giving them more rights to arrange the affairs, rather than getting them more involved in our matters, we curtailed that thing. We curtailed the aspiration. There was an act called Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act that was passed, and now we have the different union territory in the states of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh. So the only reason that comes up is the propaganda by the state that, I mean, the propaganda by the state that we will not let you enjoy your special status within the framework of Indian Constitution that others are. So there are numerous states that are enjoying it, but when it comes to a Muslim majority state of Kashmir, when it comes to a state that is fighting, when it comes to a state that people are trying themselves to get indulged into the affairs, when it comes to the state that people try to make more involvement, our approach has been very communal. Yes.
Yes. Now, also, when one looks at, politically, how this has basically impacted as well, and we've heard a lot about the Gupkar alliance as well, and I think this is very, very important to understand in the context of the abrogation of Article 370, Asif.
See, when we talk about the political empowerment of Muslims in India, after 75 years of independence, it would be shameful that the largest political party at the center don't have a Muslim representative in both houses of the parliament. This will be another shameful episode that out of the 200 million Muslims that are there, perhaps the largest in the world, the largest Muslim inhabiting state of Uttar Pradesh, the BJP didn't field a single Muslim candidate. So our political space is shrinking day by day. So what has started in India as electoral marginalization for Muslim has resulted into electoral irrelevance for the Muslims. In that context, that Muslims are politically invisibilized, Muslims are made electorally irrelevant, Muslims have been politically so disempowered, it would have been the duty of the state to make them more politically aware. It would be another matter of shame that the only state where we have a Muslim chief minister, the aspiration of the state were killed in single go. So when we talk about Gupkar alliances, I mean, this will be surprising to know who are the parties that are forming the Gupkar alliance. The same political party that have misled the people of Kashmir, the same political party that were enjoying the patronage by the same BJP, and now they are trying to form a Gupkar alliance. So any alliance formed by these kind of political parties are totally delegitimate in the eyes of the people, right? So when we have a election in Jammu and Kashmir back in 1989-90, one of the alliance called Muslim United Front, that alliance was getting maximum support by the people. And when this political party, this joint lost, the other party that won with the help of the Indian state was National Conference. National Conference is led by Farooq Abdullah, the son of Sheikh Abdullah, who was the first Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. So first Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, who insisted Nehru on inserting Article 370. His son is the same person whose political party got maximum benefit when electoral things were disturbed by the state and they came to power. So these political party who themselves are responsible for what is happening in Jammu and Kashmir, now making an alliance and saying that we really want the people participation to get back, I think it's very delegitimate. So if you talk to someone from Kashmir, they are not happy with any of these political parties. So the only thing that should come, that might come, is an alternative political setup that I'm very hopeful to see someday. Yes.
Yes. Now, also, I think the 3 years, you mentioned about the disastrous economic consequences for the people of Kashmir as a result of the decision that was taken by the Indian government on the 5th of August 2019. But also looking at the people of Kashmir that have basically been cut off from the rest of the world. And we know what has happened over the years, even things like social media, the internet, just the day to day living. And there's very little that even world mainstream media knows what has been taking place in Kashmir in the last 3 years.
See, the one of the least concerning issue would be economic, right? The most concerning issue for any person would be peace. The most concerning issue to any person living in anywhere would be justice. So when Article 370 was abrogated, the entire Kashmir Valley was cut off from the rest of the world. We had cut off the internet, road communications were cut. I mean, any form of communication with the people of Kashmir was literally cut down. In the coming months, there was a COVID-induced lockdown. So you imagine the plight of a section of people who were initially blockaded from the rest of the world. They cannot communicate, and all of a sudden there is a lockdown. So there was an existential crisis for millions of people there in Kashmir. So one thing is clear: whenever the government says that one of the only reason of getting it abrogated was economic prosperity, they're lying. There is no angle of an economic prosperity that is there. And it should be interesting that how can you think of an economic prosperity without the involvement of people? A republic is not made by conquering land. A republic is made by conquering hearts. So this is something that state should look into rather than adding more area to the boundary, or rather than confiscating someone's homes, rather than uprooting someone's means of livelihood. We should always try to we should always try to win the heart of it, right? Heart of the people, so that they are more involved in the economic activities and there is economic prosperity. That was not done in the case of Kashmir. For successive months, government had eased down certain restrictions that were there, but still one of the largest mosques in the state, in the city of Kashmir, in the Srinagar, it is yet to get open for even the Eid prayers or the Jummah prayers, right? One of the most, one of the most interesting things to look at. The people of Kashmir has always been looking for justice. So there has been 1,000 cases of gross violation of human rights. The people expected that at least after the abrogation of 370, the government will seriously look into all these cases of abuse, all the cases of rape, all these cases of custodial torture, all these cases of forceful disappearance of the people, all these cases where a number of unmarked grave of Kashmiri Muslim are found. At least what they need is justice. What they need is peace of mind. What they need is a state of being. At least they are sitting at the comfort of their houses, right? And this complete setup has got failed. People are not able to communicate. People are not able to participate. There have been increased case of violations of human right. There has increased cases of killing in several encounters and all. So altogether, the 3 years of abrogation of 370 has been a state of turmoil for the people of Kashmir. It has been a state of like an emergency for the people of Kashmir, and it has been a state of great sorrow for the people of Kashmir.
Well,
Yes.
Asif, Jazakallah khairan so much for that. I wish we could talk for much longer, but unfortunately, time is of the essence, and we do appreciate, we value that you've taken time out talking to us this morning here on Assalam Media on this issue of Kashmir and the abrogation of Article 370. We wish you all the best, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum assalam.
Aasif Mujtaba joining us out of India this morning, journalist and research scholar who is based in India. And today, the third anniversary, 3 years since the abrogation of Article 370 regarding Kashmir. And that was done illegally. The time is just gone 8:25. We come back, we'll be taking a look at the first vaccine related fertility in South Africa.